Hello and welcome to Catholic Creatives Creation of the Week conversation. Really excited to be here with you to have this wonderful conversation with our guest this week, who is Katie Woltornist. Katie does, I'm going to read here off her website because I think this is a really awesome intro here. Teacher, cake decorator, artist, lover of all things that tug on the human heart. Katie has always enjoyed finding God in the moments of every day. Katie runs this really great program called Behold, which is the showcase of what the creation of the week is for this segment. And so we're going to just bring her on here and start the conversation. Hey, Katie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Christian.
Yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for creating. So first of all, I love what you wrote on your website here, and I want to talk about all these things, especially cake decorating, because I think that is awesome. But I really love that you say all things that tug on the human heart. And what does that mean to you? Like, let's just jump into that. What called you to put that on your site?
Yeah, I think some of it is I'm an artist that does a lot of different mediums. So I started with cake decorating and drawing, and then it turned into stained glass and printmaking, and now I do icons. So some of it was I can't define myself by one medium. I think some of it is just being an artist and having so many different mediums that really call me into deeper relationship with the Lord. I think that's what drew me to be a creative is there's something very transcendent about being a creative. And I think it resonates with a lot of people where they're like, they can't really put words to like this one thing that I do or one thing that I love leads me to God. They're just like, anything that's beautiful. That's really the call of the artist, is to really delve deep into that and to not be afraid and just lean into it.
I love that. And those are words that on my good days I can tell myself, but so many times I need to hear that myself as well. Before we get into specifically Behold and what you're doing with this really awesome program and artwork, is what is your journey as an artist? Like, where did you start in your creative process? Were you always creating as a kid? Did you kind of have an aha moment? Yeah.
Yeah. So being a creative, I think the earliest I can think of that starting was like, I was probably 10 or 11 actually. So it wasn't like really early on. I can remember my mom, she's not even an artist per se, like under the name of like creating art for other people, but she was always very creative. So when I was a kid, I have a lot of memories of just like being at the kitchen table and being like, Mom, what should I draw? And she would kind of draw with me, like draw horses or different things. So I think some of it was her providing that space for me when I was a kid. And then I started to fall in love with it. My great aunt would come to New York City every so often. So I'm originally from New Jersey. She would come to New York City to do some art shows. And when she would visit, she would actually have me sit and she would draw like portraits. She was a portrait artist. And it was just so cool to me that I think one part of it was just being on the receiving end, and she would give me this artwork and it just meant so much to me. And then the other part was her really forming that. So she would write me letters with like little how-tos on how to draw a portrait and like how she got into what she ended up doing. And from that, it was kind of, I kind of made it my own. So I'm one of 7 kids, and it's my house is always noisy with like growing up. It was just, I have 2 older brothers and then 4 younger siblings. And I'm an extrovert, but I'm definitely like very, I need to like pull back and like get that quiet time in order to encounter the Lord. And so a lot of my middle and high school years was really taking that time intentionally and being like, okay, I'm just going to go to my room for a little bit and draw. And it really provided that space for really authentic communion with the Lord. Just to, on a good day, just to be like, to have that conversation with him, or on a bad day to be like, I just, processing all of that with him. And art was really a vehicle for that, whether it was drawing or eventually cake decorating. And I found more and more, I guess, like how it's developed, that started as this transcendental or this way of encountering God personally. And then the more I started creating externally, so like making cakes for other people, or creating, I do like brush letter prints and giving them to people, the more I saw just God's love for us uniquely. So for me, it was like experiencing his love, and then realizing that when he gives us gifts, that we're called to share them. And in the sharing of those gifts, that people are really affirmed in their value, and they're affirmed in their goodness, and that their life matters. So it kind of developed from being this internal thing to turning into external and relational for me.
It's such a beautiful answer, and you've just provided so much great detail of where you come from, which I really appreciate. Big family there. It's cool when like having these conversations, publicly, and then just also personally noticing that it really does start with the family. I know that can kind of come off as a cliche or a bumper sticker sort of thing, but it really does. And you're a perfect example of that. Did you grow up in a religious household, would you say?
Yeah, so I grew up Catholic. Parents had a reversion when I was 10 or 11. So it's
Oh,
interesting
wow.
kind of think about, like, I wonder if it's around that same time that they kind of were having their reversion, that a lot of my vocation as an artist kind of started to go deeper.
Wow, that, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the idea that your family invited you into creating. What did your parents do for work? If you mind me asking?
Yeah. So my dad's a computer engineer. So
Yeah.
anything in our realm, that doesn't come natural to him. And even my brothers, my mom jokes around all the time because the girls in our house are very creative,
Mm.
but my brothers are very like analytical, and one went into chemistry. A lot of the people on my dad's side of the family are like computer engineers.
Wow. Yeah.
My younger brother especially, has a lot of creativity. But yeah, my mom, I think she had that innate desire and just never got more art classes. Like, she at one point took an art class with me at Michael's. Um, when I was a kid, that was, for her, it was like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. But she never, raising 7 kids, she never had the time to really like plunge into that. But it was cool I think some of my journey was part of her journey, actually. So it's been cool to see.
That's really awesome. That's cool. Our art class. What was the class at Michael's?
It was like an oil painting, actually, which is interesting yeah, oil painting can be pretty tough. So yeah, it was just like an introduction to oil painting. And I think we did one stroke painting too, like painting vases.
That is so cool. That's such a great. There's such a great bond with it. No, it's the way you speak about your family is really wonderful, and I think, yeah, obviously the work that you're doing as a creative is really powerful, but also the work that you're doing as a person who coming from a family that seems really authentic is really another form of ministry in a sense of the way that you could share that. I think that's a gift. So thank you
Yeah.
sharing that. So you did you go to school for art? Where did you? Yeah, what was college like for you? Was there college?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how the Lord has led me to where he's led me. I did not study art. So
Okay, cool.
um I teach art at an elementary school during the day, do behold by night. So it's sort of just, yeah, I pour myself into in my free time. Um, but a lot of people assume that I studied art because I teach art, but it really happened through theology. So I studied theology. A part of my story is I actually discern religious life. So I went to Franciscan University for a time, studying theology and catechetics. Felt called to discern religious life more deeply. So I, halfway through college, entered the Nashville Dominicans. Um, and that's kind of a story in and of itself of like my art vocation really just had this deep, behold is actually the fruit of that experience.
Cool.
Uh, and graduated with a degree in theology after I left religious life. I was just there about a year as a postulant. And then taught theology in a high school.
Mm.
Teaching theology, I would teach using artwork because of my love for art. And then it kind of developed into Behold. And then my current job was like, oh, you teach how to pray with art. Can you do that with the kids? And then also teach them how to create art? I was like, that's my dream job. Like, let's do it. So, but I took classes. So I did a stained glass class. I took some oil painting, some drawing, but I never actually like majored in it.
Oh, I love that. I'm actually always really happy to hear that, because I think it's important for other creatives to see that you can be really um, creative with your career path. And so,
Yeah.
and we're seeing it. I'm noticing such a trend in the Catholic creatives community that's really kind of the norm, is that so many people don't go to school for what they think. And I myself, I went to business school
Oh,
originally. Yeah, so the same thing. I went and then went into ministry. But it's funny though, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, that going in a path that you didn't expect would lead you to where you are is better prepared you, perhaps.
yes.
You feel that way?
Oh yeah, totally. And I don't know if you feel this way with the business school too, but it's like you get experience in ways that you didn't think you need. So certain things in theology that I study, I'm like, oh my gosh, this totally applies to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it also gave me, I think, the courage and the freedom to pursue what I wanted creationally. Like I didn't feel kind of bound by expectations of other people of like, oh, you majored in this, so you have to pursue. I was like, this is something I love and I see a need and a call. And so I'm going to do it. And worst case, I try it and, try it and see what happens. But it kind of gave that freedom to just jump into it. Yeah. So I don't know if you found that with the business school as well, but yeah, just like things that you never thought you'd use that kind of come back later.
I was just talking to someone recently about just like art and things and stuff, and they said, I'm going to butcher this quote, but I'll do my best here. He said something along the lines of, what the church needs right now is we don't need masterful, skilled individuals. We need people who can have skill, but can also have the zest and the fervor for understanding how to communicate. And so this isn't just a church issue. I think this is every organization of purpose and deep heart is having this issue where, do we just have really pretty projects, but there's no depth? Or do we have just the depth, but then there's still really crummy value? And finding that balance is really important. And I've always felt that my background, the same way that I think you're speaking of, has given me the opportunity to be in both camps in a way that's realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's cool. So you went to school. You then found yourself making cakes. So where does that go? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so I started cake decorating. I was 11. My mom for my birthday was like, "Oh, you like art? Let's get you a Michael's class." And I think she
There's
went
a
to
lot of Michael's class.
her.
Can we put a Michael's banner at the bottom here
Yeah,
as an unofficial sponsor?
Michael's right now, apparently.
Awesome.
But this was before like all the cake decorating TV shows came out. But at the time it was $25, no joke, for like the cake tips, everything, and 4 classes.
Wow.
So my mom was like, for your birthday, we'll buy you cake decorating classes, probably to like make my own birthday cake.
Yeah. It's a great birthday gift though, because it's an experience. I'm always a big fan of experience gifts.
Yes, it was awesome. Like, I think some of it too, my mom, wow. Yeah, no, some of it was really cool because then she was like, oh, like I had a friend Dorothy and she's like, how about Dorothy comes with you and you'll have this friend. It was kind of like a win-win because it was like that time with my friend Dorothy and we would cake decorate together.
I'm picturing your mom just like, I have no clue what your mom looks like, but I'm just picturing her sitting in a kitchen with a paper going, hey guys, let's go to the fair. Like there's going to be this, and just like always bringing up really fun things to do. Be like, monster trucks are coming into town. You guys want to go? All right. That's
my mom
awesome.
So much like that. Like we joke around her temperament. I don't know if you're familiar with the temperaments, but she's like sanguine.
No.
So she's like very, just like whenever there's something to do, she's like, let's go do it. Like that's so cool. Much energy. So, and yeah, I mean, I think speaking with you, it really points out to me that I think she's very creative, even if she didn't become like an artist externally, by selling art. Like she really nourished that a lot in me. So yeah, I did that for my birthdays, like for 4 years. And then it kind of happened that friends were like, oh, well, I would give friends for their gift, I would give them birthday cakes.
Yeah.
So one of my first cakes was an Xbox cake, like for a friend in middle school. Um, and then the last class, you learn fondant and tiered cakes. And after that, it kind of was like I made cakes for friends and then they would tell their friends. And now it's been on the side of teaching. Usually over the summers, I'll do like wedding cakes. So I did my brother's wedding cake, um, and just like special events. So the Sisters of Life last August had a final profession. I got to like go out to New York and just teach them how to do fondant cakes. And um,
It's awesome.
so it's a lot of fun. Like all these opportunities that you're like, I never would have pictured this, but
Yeah.
um, it's just, it's really fun to see what opportunities God kind of brings your way.
Yeah. Oh, that is really cool. Yeah, and I think it's nice too when your creation can be something like you were saying before, that it's a gift to other people. I think that's
Mhm.
really special. And yeah, I think that's it's it's wonderful when you can not only see how your creation is good for your own soul, because selfishly, we also create because we know that it's good for our psyche. It's good to
Yeah.
do, but then when you compare it with sharing, that's really where the final completion is. So that's special.
Mhm.
So what is Behold? Let's jump into this because it's a really cool thing. To give you a background on how this kind of works for me, I'm always checking out what's going on in the Catholic Creators world, and the Show Up Tuesday area specifically, and seeing what people are doing. And I really liked what you were doing with this, and I think it's really cool because it's aimed towards women specifically, and I think right now we're seeing this movement of women empowerment, which is so appropriate. However, not all of it is really being genuinely done. I personally, I just, because I'm seeing certain things where I'm like, are we doing this because we really want to see women succeed, or are we doing it because we just want to check this box off? That
Yes.
we're giving women a voice, and then next week we're going to go back to the way it was. Um, Sorry if that's really aggressive, but I'm feeling that men are doing that to women, and it's bothering me. So, and yours just seems really genuine. So, tell us about it.
Yeah. Thanks for hitting on that, Christian, because I think you're hitting on something really important, and something that you noticed about, yeah, like a call I kind of saw or a need in the world, but doing it in a proper light. And I think um, there's this balance of um, helping people to receive the gift that they are and rejoice in their gifts. And that's men and women. So um, for me, I felt called to women's ministry, particularly because I experienced healing in a deep understanding of my femininity. And I felt that vocation to really just serve women. Um, so we serve, like, I go to parishes and speak, and I speak to men and women, but like this ministry particularly helps women focus on receiving God's love in the way that they're meant to receive God's love as women. And from that experience to go out and to encourage other women and to encourage the men in their life. And that, I know we talked about this before we met up, but just the importance of um, helping people to receive the gift that they are. And the women's empowerment movement, I think there are things that are spot on, of helping women to receive their dignity, um, as women, to rejoice in being a woman. But I think there also can be a temptation for people to um, really live out of a wound or a hurt, and to, I mean, something that can be um, a temptation is to really bring men down so that women can feel empowered. And I think that's a wrong approach to it. I think a lot of it is actually just affirming the good. I think that's what we're called to do as Catholics is God created all things that are good. And so what are the goods in being a woman and rejoicing in that? And then what are the goods that we receive from men? Because there's this complementarity that's really important, and that we're called to build a culture of life. So um, I found in my own life a lot of what I do with Behold really started from reading John Paul's letter to women and feeling really affirmed in just like the fact that God made me as a woman and I'm called to receive his love in the ways that he has given me. And I found that healing that relationship with myself through prayer and through understanding my dignity as a woman, I was then called to go out and encourage the men in my life. And to really say, like, I mean, a lot of it came from, a lot of that journey came from hurts in the past that I experienced. But instead of turning inward and saying, well, I need to, hurt in response to that because I'm hurting, to say, okay, I'm going to desire healing and find the Lord's healing there. So that hurt people don't hurt people. I don't know if this is like, we'll see where the Holy Spirit goes with this, but I think there's something really important about being healed and receiving our gifts so that there's this beautiful complementarity of man and woman in our society, our culture.
Yeah, and I think there's a responsibility to, as a man, I can only speak, limitedly, right? But I've always thought, well, yes, we need to build women up and do those things that are appropriate. But I think we also need to spend a lot of time, men need to spend time saying, hey, who are the good men that we can
Yes
up as well, and let them start teaching and start sharing.
Yeah.
And it's cool that Pope Francis made this the year of St. Joseph, because I'm finding personally that this is a great opportunity to have discussions with other men about how we can build women up properly as a kid together. Not that men have the power to do that, but I mean that. And then also just breaking down those personal things that we need to fix, because, there are a lot of bad guys out there. There are, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that need to be, but I think there's a lot more saving that can be done.
Yes. Yeah. And something important that I know we've experienced in our groups. So the ministry that I have, it's teaching women how to pray using sacred art and scripture.
Okay, so let's go down. Let's like break this down in a way as if like I was someone new that's never heard of it, and you're gonna walk me through how I join, how I do all these kinds of things. And then,
because I think what was striking me is a lot of what you were mentioning is things that women in my group have mentioned. And a lot of what we do is we teach people how to practice prayer through Visio Divina. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Lectio Divina.
Sure.
It's sacred scripture, pondering it over and over and asking the Lord in particular what it means to you. It's very personal. And we kind of add this other element to it of praying with a work of sacred art. So, and it's been in the church a long time. I think it's just been an untapped resource. So if you think of stained glass windows or even Stations of the Cross, like we just finished Lent, Stations of the Cross are a Visio Divina.
Yeah.
So
I was saying to someone being a filmmaker too, like I've always prayed through images and artwork, and
awesome.
Every year watching Passion of the Christ, there's so many shots in that film that the director took from sacred paintings, and he literally mimicked them. And there's that one where Mary's taking Christ on the cross, and I'm forgetting the exact, but like he very purposely designed it in a way where it would look exactly like that famous painting. And so you can, awesome. Yeah. So like when I was reading what Behold was, I thought of that too, of how it's already, how I didn't realize it's already at work. So that's cool.
Yeah. And I think it's just really incarnational. So it's like living the gospel in just a different way, is like using all the senses. So, I like to do imaginative prayer with it. So we have our groups, we provide booklets for the women that we serve. So we have small groups, anywhere from 5 to 15 people in a small group in a parish, or even I led a group here in Alexandria, Virginia, just at my house in the backyard when COVID was going on. It was like distant, just outside. So it didn't have to be tied to a parish either. And we provide booklets on, so far it's been the mysteries of the Rosary. we just did pre-order. So starting next month, we're doing a program called Faith Over Fear.
Oh, cool.
So it's very appropriate for the last year,
Yeah.
and just the times we live in, and just taking themes such as faith over fear. We took times in scripture where God and Jesus met people in their fear. So we provide an image, we provide scripture, and then we provide reflection questions, which are, I think, for me, I find that to be actually the most powerful part, is they direct you back to the image or to the scripture, but they help you to go real deep. So we have an Annunciation image by Henry O. Tanner in the Annunciation passage. And one of the questions is, it mentions that Mary is afraid. What is an area of fear in your life where you need to go with the Lord and ask him about it? So it really helps people to go deeper into the heart. And we try to do it with the intentionality of healing. So going those places with the Lord and knowing that when we go those places with him, we become freer, and we can live more authentic relationship with him. We're freer in the way that we're not bound by fear. We might experience it, but to say, okay, the Lord is here. Like, what is he doing? And from that, we actually have small group discussion. So we teach people how to pray with the art, have that personal encounter. Each person's experience is going to be way different, right? It's about their unique circumstances and how the Lord is speaking to them right now. And then from that, we do small group discussion, which really fosters community. Like I try to foster vulnerability in my groups and say, like, you're in a space where all of us love each other. And this is a space to know that you're loved by the Lord. And to know that when I talk about whatever has come up in my prayer, that I'll be supported and encouraged. And so it's this beautiful element of relationship with God, deeper receiving of who I am in his eyes, no matter what wounds come up or whatever, receiving his gaze and his love, and then going out from that into relationship and having that lived out.
Wow. How long have you been doing this specific project?
So I've been doing it since 2016. Wow. So, and it didn't start as a business. So like now it's a business.
Yeah.
But when it was happening, I was like, dear Lord, I remember getting down on my knees and being like, dear Lord, like I'm a teacher. I'm not a business person. Like,
yeah.
And then kind of just being like, if you want something to happen, have the right people come. And like literally somebody with a business background texted me the next day and was like, do you need help starting a business? I was like, I kind of was like, Lord, I take it back. Like,
I'm not ready.
But yeah, so it was the fruit of, there's a women's conference. If anybody wants to look them up, it's called the Given Institute.
Okay. Yeah.
It started as the Given Forum in 2016. It was just a women's conference. It was basically to help women be affirmed in their gifts as a woman in the church, in the eyes of the church. But one of the requirements was you got the conference for free as long as you mentioned like what your gifts and talents were and how you'd give back to the church. So I was like, oh, I love art, and I found healing through theology of the body. So like, I found personal healing in my relationship with God and discernment from the comment, like that whole experience, by praying with artwork. So I was like, oh, I'll do a small group program with a small group of women on the mysteries of the rosary. And then it just, from there, by week 3, we just had, one woman who was like, I had a hard time finding God through my experience of a miscarriage, and just being able to receive the grace of finding him through immense grief. And I was like, this is something beyond a human, like taking the step back and being like, whatever God wants to do, he has to do it. and um, just taking step by step to provide that opportunity for him to do what he desired. So now we're a business and provide programs to parishes and speaking engagements and whatnot.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah, when you open the door to that conversation with the Lord, like
Mhm.
I feel like you'd be so surprised to see what people bring to the table and
Yeah.
what people are going through and the way that people desire healing. And then, yeah, I just did a consecration group for St. Joseph
Oh,
here
awesome.
with my
Yeah.
students. And yeah, it was the same thing where it kind of, it started and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but we're going to open the door and say yes, to every, and just the conversations that came from there, just shockingly amazing. And um, so it's pretty cool to see how you were able to not only have that experience, but then say, oh, this could be something bigger and we can provide this for other people. So now, do you run all the groups, or does, like, if I were to be like, hey, I want to do a group, how would that work? Would
Sure.
I work with you, or would you kind of hand mail me a package? And yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it started out that I was leading all the groups, and then I was like, I write the books. That's my primary, one of my favorite parts is like each book that comes out is actually the fruit of like something I'm going through with the Lord. So Faith Over Fear, it was because of a personal struggle with anxiety last year. And just walking through that with the Lord and then being like, okay, like testing it out with a group and having the women resonate with it. And so that's my favorite part, that like in the beginning I was leading all the groups and writing and doing website and doing like all the many hats being a business person. um and it got to the point where I was like, you know what, it's actually really affirming to these women if they have the gifts and talents and desire to lead a group, um that it really accomplishes our mission even more of helping people receive their gifts. Um, so we actually do facilitator training virtually, and it's just videos. So I keep in touch with each person. They send in a form through our website or email me, and I keep up personal communication with them and say like, okay, like what is it that you desire? What are your gifts and talents? Like, let's affirm those and plug those into the church. The parable of the talents. Like,
Yeah.
if you um, really desire to lead a group, like let's provide you the resources on how to lead small group discussion, and let's get a calendar date set up of when you want to start a group. And so we kind of keep up communication, provide the resources, and then a few weeks in I touch base with them about how the group's going. But we have a facilitator guide for
Oh,
our
great.
facilitators, and
Yeah.
it's like I kind of tell them, I'm like, you could roll with the Holy Spirit if like, your discussion's going one way and it seems like very anointed, like do it. But we also have it scripted. So like the people who are like, I've never led small group, to say, okay, like you could literally read it and feel confident. So we provide those resources.
I really like the humility behind this, the way that this whole thing seems to have unfolded for you, because it's very easy for you to say, like, no, this is my thing, like I'm the host, I'm doing it, whatever, and use that kind of language. But it seems like it's had a very natural growth of saying, hey, okay, I think we're ready to hand it out to other people and do this. Um, what is something that you've discovered about yourself in this process? Because 2016, that's a pretty good amount of time that you've been doing it now. What's been the biggest thing that you've been like just revealing about yourself through this?
Yeah. Hmm. I guess the biggest thing for me is the goodness of the Lord's call, and in whatever we're called to is I guess this is twofold, that when you give the Lord your yes,
Mm.
that he, like an unconditional yes of like, I might not know what what you're doing, but I trust you as a person. And I think it came to that for me pretty early on, where it was like, there are things happening that I cannot, this is not me, this is the Lord using me. Um and just saying like, a lot of this is scary of like starting a business, or uh I never studied psychology, and things are coming up in this group that like
Yeah.
I never thought. I mean, it's beautiful to encounter, and I'm just like in awe of what God is doing, but I feel like so ill qualified.
You're like, is there a hotline I should know about? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and I think a lot of creatives feel this way, where it's like you're doing something and then like there's this fruit and you're like, what is going on? Um, and so the unconditional yes, I know at Given, Sister Mary Gabriel, she's a sister of life, would say, she had this line where she was like, you give your unconditional yes like Mary, and like you have no idea where that yes will take you, but it's going to be fruitful. Because you're trusting that, like you're trusting that person of who God is. Um, but I know for me, I had found, it's just, it's funny how God works, of like, beholds the fruit of discerning religious life and realizing that wasn't who God created me to be, and like struggling with that and wrestling with that through prayer, um, through very difficult experiences. Um, and yet in the losing of that vocation, him revealing a new vocation to me, like without a doubt in my mind, I'm like, this is what God made me for. And there are other things he has made me for too. Yes. But like, without a doubt in my mind, I know that this is something he created me for. And I think a lot of creatives feel that way, of like, here they come alive, or they find themselves in that artwork that they create, or um, it's just, it's this experience with knowing who you are, um, that is just deeply powerful.
What's been your favorite part of writing the book and doing, doing this? Was there a piece of art that you specifically are like, oh, I really like this one?
Ooh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah. I would say my favorite part of writing is, it's like a favorite but also not favorite, of like the Lord confronting me with things in my life that need
Yeah.
that like way my relationship with him. And so most of the time in the process, it's like, oh, I don't want to see this. And I'm like, that's not there. And then halfway through, it's like, oh, there's a reason the Lord's doing this. So I think our mission of healing for women, it really starts with like me having deeper healing, so that I can be that vessel. So I think that's something important that I've noticed. I also just am in awe of the people I meet. That's my favorite part about Behold, is I have so many people I've met, whether they're from like Pennsylvania or California, or, you know, like I got in touch with somebody from Singapore. Like these stories that you get, that you're like, I never would have put these together. And just like the awe of a person, like that, I hear their story, and, you know, somebody we have using our book is helping like, you know, older people with dementia and like an elderly home. I'm like, this is something that is immensely beautiful, that somebody's spending their life helping these people. So that's a favorite part. I would say a favorite image, I love the Annunciation painting by Henry O. Tanner, but the more sentimental piece is an image that is deeply important to me, is the Fra Angelico Annunciation painting. So, and it's because that was the first image I did. So I was in the convent, couldn't pray, but the only way I could pray was actually sitting with his image for like 9 months straight. And it was because I was experiencing like a lot of fear of like, I don't know if I'm called to this, and like struggle with identity of like, who am I? Like, who did God make me to be? And yet looking to Mary and saying like, oh, she knows what this feels like. Like, so even though that image doesn't personally, like I'm not praying with it all the time anymore,
Right.
that image is like, I still have it on my desk as like, this is just the start of Behold, in a deeper vocation.
you have your next one is faith over fear. What now is that going to be? Are men invited to this one as well, or how's this one looking?
So currently our program is specifically to help women in the understand their vocation. I will say, so we have the Mysteries of the Rosary, and it's a focus on the feminine genius.
Mhm.
We have Faith Over Fear, but honestly, even though it's formulated for women small groups, we have had men pray with it and have. So it's not like the questions are specifically like, what does this mean to you as a woman?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just our audience has been primarily women. Um, in the works, we're hoping to get it out sometime soon. Is we're actually working on a companion for families for the year of St. Joseph. So this, I mean, I'm currently working on it right now with a parish in New Jersey. Um, and they're doing it for a program, but I think we're going to actually do something with it as well, of like, we do images of the Holy Family, such as the flight into Egypt or the Annunciation, with a focus on St. Joseph, and have this beautiful mix of questions for wives, questions for husbands, and questions for children. So it could lead to prayer for a family or discussion for a family. So that hopefully will be out in a few months as well. But the Faith Over Fear, we already have pre-orders up. So that's less from a standpoint of only women, if men are interested in that as well.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. I'm gonna take a look at it. I think that's I think it's really cool to see the way that you're taking all of your gifts, and I think that's a really I'm noticing just a through point here of almost this underlying theme of just take all of your gifts, almost like ingredients of a cake, let's put them in there and make this into something really wonderful. And it's really it's exciting. It's contagious. It's a good feeling to be around. So great work. Any final thoughts here? Anything that you wish to share as we conclude this conversation?
Yeah. I think the main things are, just words of encouragement for anybody who is a creative of, if you have gifts and talents, to lean into those and to know that the Lord has given them to you for a reason. I like to reflect on the parable of the talents, and John Paul II talks about artists having a vocation and kind of the grave weight of it. Like, if God has given this to you, rejoice in it and share it, because it's important for people to encounter Christ. So just encouragement to an artist in any realm, whether it's dance or photography or painting, that those are gifts to be shared with the world, and it's really, really important that you share them. If people would ever like to get in touch with us through our ministry, I would be happy to connect with other creatives. Even if people are like, I just want to learn how to pray with art, or, or if you find gifts and talents that you want to share that like you just think would really go well with our ministry, reach out to us. So we have my emails on our website. Our website's www.beholdvisiodivina.com. And we have contact information on there. We have an Instagram. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'd be happy to connect.
Cool. And and we'll have all those links in the video link here and on the Catholic Creatives Creation of the Week website area as well. So, well, great stuff, great creating, and thank you for what you're doing. Not only for women, obviously, but also just in general, this energy of creation you have. I really feel like we're witnessing the start of something. Yes, it's been around for a bit, but the start of something that's really powerful. And so God bless. Best of luck to you with everything you're doing. I look forward to seeing more.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cristian.
Well, thanks everyone for joining for this edition of Catholic Creatives Creation of the Week conversation. Thank you, Katie, for the great work that you're doing with Behold and your ministry. Excited to see you all again soon in our next conversation. All right. God bless and have a great day.